Welcome back to Veg Travel Guides. In this video, I'll introduce Taiwan's extensive public transport systems, which are so convenient, efficient, and inexpensive that most people have no need or even use for a private car. But the nation's long history of colonization, combined with earthquakes and rapid urban and economic growth, have made public transport systems here quite different to even those in neighbouring countries. So in this video, I'll share everything you need to know to travel around Formosa as a tourist or a new resident. Starting with rail, we can divide it up into the older conventional trains and the newer high-speed rail. These are totally separate systems, although their tracks cross in a few places to allow for transfers, including at Taipei Main Station. The conventional train system effectively circles the island, connecting up all the main coastal cities. Keelung, Taipei's port city, however, forks off the main line a few stops north of Taipei, and in the middle of the west coast, the railway splits into two parallel lines. The coastline bypasses Taichung, while the inland Mount Line passes through it. There are three main classes of conventional trains. Local trains are the slowest and the cheapest, they have no reserved seats, and they stop at every station. They're usually very crowded near main cities, but quite empty elsewhere. If you have time, local trains can be a comfortable, relaxing, and very inexpensive way to travel around Taiwan. Next up in price and speed are Chuguang trains. These stop at fewer stations than local trains, and all their seats are reserved. Next come the Taichung trains, which are often translated to express trains in English. These are similar to Chuguang trains, but they're faster, more expensive, and they only stop at major stations. Everyone who stays in Taiwan for more than a day or two should purchase an Easy Card, Taiwan's most popular electronic cash system. Easy Cards can be used to pay for all the trains discussed so far in this video for 10% less than the price of a local train. But here's the catch. Passengers who pay with Easy Cards don't have a ticket, so they don't have a seat reservation. They're allowed to sit in vacant seats, but they must immediately vacate that seat if someone comes along with a ticket for it, which usually happens close to major cities. If you go to buy a ticket for a Taichung or Chuguang train and there aren't seats available, a clerk or a vending machine will sell you a standing ticket for the same price as one with a seat. But in that case, it's better just to use an Easy Card and get the same deal, that is, a ride without a reserved seat, for about half the price. So keep an eye out for the no seat warning when buying a ticket. But the fastest and most comfortable way to travel between Taiwanese cities is to reserve a ticket on a Taroko Express or Puyuma Express train. These modern Japanese trains tilt as they go round corners, and they stop at even fewer stations than Taichungs. Fares for Taroko and Puyuma trains cost the same as Taichung trains, even though they're considerably faster and more comfortable. But the Taroko and Puyuma trains are the only ones for which passengers aren't allowed to use Easy Cards. Everyone must have a seat reservation. Tickets go on sale 2 weeks before departure and usually sell out fast, especially for trips to the beautiful East Coast. How should you buy train tickets? If you're happy to stand, it's easiest and cheapest to just use an Easy Card and board whichever train comes first, except of course a Taroko or Puyuma. If you'd like a reserved seat, then I generally recommend just going to the counter with the name of your destination written down in Chinese, although these new vending machines are multilingual and perfectly usable for foreign travellers or new residents. These older machines, which they've mostly replaced, are not fully bilingual, and these even older ones can't even give reserved seats. The online system for reserving seats works, but unfortunately it's not very intuitive. While we're talking about conventional trains, it's worth a special mention of three old narrow-gauge railways which were built for hauling timber and coal about a century ago, but are now mostly used for tourism. The GG Railway heads inland towards Sun Moon Lake from Taichung through stunning horticultural landscapes which are becoming very popular for cycling. The Pingxi Railway in the north passes through historic coal mining towns which have recently become popular day trips from Taipei. And the Alishan Forest Railway offers a spectacular ride up from Jiayi Station halfway up Alishan Mountain, but the second half of the line is still under restoration work after it was damaged by a typhoon in 2009, so passengers need to transfer to a bus at Fengqihu. Next comes the high-speed rail system, known as the HSR, or Gaotie in Chinese. This is essentially a Japanese Shinkansen, which is sometimes called a bullet train in English, running on French tracks. The HSR only runs up and down the densely populated west coast. The fastest trains take only an hour and a half from Taipei to Kaohsiung, while regular HSR trains take about 2 hours. Stations are modern, spacious, and fully bilingual, so the HSR is the fastest and most comfortable way to travel long distances in Taiwan, but it's also by far the most expensive. There's another big catch to the HSR, however, which many tourists are unaware of. Most stations are located about half an hour away from the cities they serve, so the additional commutes to and from stations often makes it not economical, especially for short journeys. The reason for this seemingly absurd situation is that most of Taiwan's cities were planned, or rather not planned, by the Qing dynasty in the 19th century, which makes them dysfunctional in the 21st century. So the high-speed rail was built mostly through the countryside, and then new 21st century cities quickly grew up around its stations. While these new cities offer a high standard of living to the people who are fortunate enough to live and work in them, most tourist attractions are located in the old cities which are served by the conventional train system. It is, however, worth taking the HSR for long journeys and also to travel to tourist hotspots, as most are served by tourist shuttle buses which stop at both conventional and high-speed rail stations. These include Alishan, Sun Moon Lake and Puli in the centre of the island. You might think that such a sophisticated rail system wouldn't leave room for buses. But buses are probably the most popular means of intercity transport among Taiwanese. They're comfortable, convenient, inexpensive, and many offer USB charging and free high-speed Wi-Fi. Intercity buses are usually comparable in price and travel time to local trains, which makes them about a third of the price of the high-speed rail, but commutes take about 3 times as long, and often longer at rush hour, because most of Taiwan's freeways don't have bus lanes. Schedules run according to demand, and while long waits can occur on Friday and Sunday evenings, especially before or after long weekends in the Lunar New Year, it's usually possible to just turn up and get a seat on a bus within a few minutes. Taipei's main bus station is just north of Taipei Main Station and is connected to it by underground passages. But there's also a separate bus station to the east of Taipei Main Station, which is where the bus to the airport leaves from, although for most travellers the new Taoyuan Airport MRT is a faster and more reliable way to get to the airport. Now, to compare all these options, let's consider a trip from Taipei to Taichung. This trip takes us about halfway down the populated west coast, a distance of about 150 kilometres. The best way, if you know in advance, is to buy a ticket on a Puyuma or Toroko Express train. This trip takes about 1 hour and 40 minutes, costs 375 Taiwan dollars, and guarantees you a seat on a fast, modern train. If you can't book one in time, you can buy a ticket on the Taichung Express train for the same price. It'll take about half an hour longer, and the aisles will probably be crowded with standing passengers. If you can't reserve a seat on any train, then you might as well use your Easy Card, which will cost 217 Taiwan dollars whichever train you board, but please remember that you're not allowed to ride on the Toroko or Puyuma trains. For the slow and relaxing option, use your Easy Card and ride a local train. This will cost the same 217 Taiwan dollars, take about 3 to 3.5 hours, and you'll probably get a seat quite soon after leaving Taipei. As for the high-speed train, the trip from Taipei Main Station to Taichung HSR Station takes about an hour and costs 700 Taiwan dollars. But this lands you in Wuri District, about 7 kilometres southwest of central Taichung. You'll then have to transfer to a local train for the 11-minute and 15 Taiwan dollar trip to Taichung Station. This makes it almost twice the price of a Toroko or Puyuma Express train, but it's at most only about 20 minutes faster, and it has the inconvenience of a transfer at Shinwuri Station. Finally, a bus from Taipei Main Station to Taichung Station usually takes around 3 hours and costs 300 Taiwan dollars, but it can take significantly longer at peak traffic times. All considered, for this journey, I would take the Toroko or Puyuma train if I'm able to book a ticket in advance, or else I'd probably just take a bus. How about getting around cities? Taipei, Taichung and Kaohsiung have excellent light rail systems called the MRT, which stands for Mass Rapid Transit. The MRT is among the world's fastest, cleanest and most inexpensive public transport systems. Some lines run above the road, like Bangkok SkyTrain, and some are underground, like subways or tubes, and some alternate between the two. Most trips cost between 20 and 50 Taiwan dollars, which is about 1 to 2 US dollars, and day passes can be bought for 150 Taiwan dollars. Lines are referred to by colour. Eating and drinking on MRTs is strictly prohibited. If you can't get somewhere in a city by MRT, there'll almost certainly be a local bus. Please be aware that, in stark contrast to Taiwan's intercity buses, local buses can be quite uncomfortable because drivers accelerate into gaps in the traffic like scooters, often before boarding passengers have even had a chance to sit down. Like on the MRT, food and drink is strictly prohibited. I strongly recommend paying for bus fares with an Easy Card. Just swipe it by the sensor as you board and as you leave the bus. Buses can't give change, so never get on without coins unless you're desperate enough to give up a 100 NT bill, in which case you'd probably be better to spend it on a taxi. Taxis in Taiwan are incredibly honest and reliable, and in 10 years I've never been ripped off, something I can't say for any other countries, not even Japan. Flagfall in Taipei starts at 70 Taiwan dollars, which makes taxis a good option for small hops around the city which aren't covered directly by the MRT. In smaller cities, taxis are fewer and further between and more expensive. I recommend tipping taxis about 10 to 20%, but I don't recommend tipping elsewhere in Taiwan because it's not part of the culture, and tipping in restaurants is likely to drive wages down. If you're stuck somewhere and you need a taxi, it's possible to go into any convenience store and ask them to call one. The Taiwanese government fought a long war with Uber, who for years refused to pay taxes and insurance fees, but the government won, so Uber have finally admitted they're a taxi company and began paying their dues. Because of that, and because of how the company operates around the world, I'm not a fan of Uber myself, but if you are, then it's now safe and legal to use it here in Taiwan. How about bicycles? During the Japanese era, bicycles were the most popular means of transport, but after World War II, the motor scooter took the bicycle's place, and Taiwan now has more motor scooters per capita than any other country. But cycling is making a fast comeback, and many parts of Taiwan, particularly the Central Mountain Range and the plains in the centre of the island, offer some spectacular cycling opportunities, but that's for another video. The rapidly growing U-Bike public bicycle sharing system allows riders to rent bikes and then return them to any available dock in the city. While there are separate apps for it, a Google Maps search for U-Bike usually brings up nearby docks, and most have both bikes and empty spaces available to return them to most of the time. Tourists can rent a bike from the kiosk with a credit card, or if you're staying in Taiwan, it's worth registering an Easy Card with a U-Bike system. Prices start from 10 NT for the first half hour, and the pricing structure is designed to encourage people to rent bikes for short commutes and then return them, but they can also be used for recreational riding, such as at Xindian or Dunshui. Taipei has a lot of designated bike paths, but in other cities is often a choice between the road, which is dangerous, and the footpath, which is illegal. Wherever you ride, please be careful. Finally, while new suburbs are about as aesthetically pleasing as any modern, densely populated metropolis can be, and there are still some beautiful old Japanese colonial buildings in use, most Taiwanese cities leave a lot to be desired, so I strongly recommend using these public transport systems to get out of the cities and enjoy the beautiful countryside, especially the wild south, the beautiful east coast, and the stunning central mountain range. But they're all topics for other videos. Till then, thanks for watching.